Chris Steele-Perkins' photography offered a deeply human perspective behind the often cold and distant headlines. The recent passing of British-Burmese photographer Chris Steele-Perkins has led many to celebrate his remarkable ability to capture the essence of communities caught in historical turmoil. One of the most notable tributes came from American nonfiction writer Patrick Radden Keefe, who was especially moved by Steele-Perkins' powerful images from West Belfast during the Troubles, a dark chapter that defined Northern Ireland's recent history. These photographs, taken during a 1979 visit to Northern Ireland, included a series shot at the Divis Flats, a location steeped in tragedy and conflict. The Divis Flats were notorious as a Republican enclave and marked the last place where Jean McConville was seen alive before she was tragically executed by the IRA on suspicion of being an informant. This murder and its aftermath became the focus of Radden Keefe's acclaimed book, Say Nothing. After Steele-Perkins' death, Keefe remarked that the photographer's visual documentation of the flats, the very space where this harrowing story began, served as a huge source of inspiration for his work. The photos speak volumes: damaged cars, children swinging from makeshift rope swings, and stark poverty paint a challenging picture. Yet strikingly, many subjects wear genuine smiles, adding an unexpected, humanizing dimension that contradicts the usual grim narratives frequently presented about the Troubles. This aspect, which tends to be overlooked, gives a nuanced understanding of life amid conflict. For a writer like Radden Keefe, aiming to animate the past with authenticity, Steele-Perkins' images were invaluable, a treasure trove of lived experience captured candidly. I experienced a similar revelation when working on my own book, We Were There, which explores Black British cultural history during the Thatcher era. Steele-Perkins, born in Burma but raised in northeast England, had devoted time capturing Black communities in Wolverhampton. He was assigned by the Sunday Times to document this town, famously associated with the MP Enoch Powell, who a decade earlier delivered the divisive Rivers of Blood speech. Like his Belfast work, these Wolverhampton photos unveil a side of the community ignored by mainstream portrayals that often linked it to violence and crime. Steele-Perkins admitted to The Guardian that it was far from an easy task. He recounted how these young people, somewhat rebellious and wary, were not immediately welcoming. Yet through persistence, he gained access to vibrant church gatherings, football matches, and lively sound system events, moments that showed the richness of community life. Throughout my own process discussing the artwork for my book, one image from this collection kept reappearing. This favorite photograph, taken inside a 1978 dance hall, beautifully captures the fluidity of movement and joy. Three women dance with palpable energy, while an imposing sound system looms behind them. Steele-Perkins himself named this his favorite shot, recognizing how it perfectly encapsulates what it feels like to be immersed in a dance environment. I studied this image endlessly while writing a chapter on Wolverhampton's cultural developments, particularly the rise of the Black art group in the early 1980s, a collective of Black artists who challenged societal norms. Claudette Johnson, one of the group's founding members, later drew inspiration from this photograph for her painting Blues Dance, which featured in her 2023 solo exhibition at the Courtauld Gallery. Steele-Perkins had a unique talent for revealing the unseen layers of a community, the everyday moments that go beyond the sensational headlines. Reflecting on his West Belfast work, he emphasized his interest in the full spectrum of life there, not just the violence and military presence that dominated news reports, but also the leisure, entertainment, domestic spaces, celebrations, and mourning. He approached his subjects without pushing a predetermined agenda or thesis, aiming instead to immerse himself honestly and openly in their lives. This philosophy carried through many of his projects. He spent 3 years documenting a subculture of teddy boys, youths with a 1960s rockabilly style, who had earned a reputation for violence, notably implicated in the 1958 Notting Hill race riots. Despite their tough image, Steele-Perkins gained their trust, entering their homes and communities to produce the TEDs, an intimate and unparalleled portrait of this influential group. His work has often been compared to that of Don McCullin, another legendary photographer known for finding humanity amid hardship and conflict. But Steele-Perkins was also part of a broader cultural movement during the turbulent 1970s and early 1980s. A loosely connected constellation of artists, writers, and thinkers, pushing back against the dominant narratives propagated by mainstream media. Among his contemporaries were early contributors to radical outlets like Time Out magazine, filmmakers such as Maureen Blackwood, Philip Donnellan, and Tony Garnett, and writers and poets including Stuart Hall, contributors to Spare Rib magazine, photographer Clement Cooper, and dub poet Linton Kwesi Johnson. Together, these voices offered alternative perspectives during the rise of Thatcherism and its divisive social impact. What makes Steele-Perkins stand out within this group is how he managed to bridge the gap between radical counterculture and mainstream recognition. He became a member of Magnum Photos, one of the world's most prestigious and historically exclusive photographic agencies, joining their ranks officially in 1983, and going on to serve as Magnum's president from 1995 to 1998. His notable book, The Pleasure Principle, critically examined Britain's shift toward individualism and consumerism during the Thatcher years. His lens wasn't confined to the UK. Steele-Perkins traveled extensively, capturing powerful images in Afghanistan and Zimbabwe before settling in Japan with his second wife, Miyako Yamada. There, he continued his photographic journey, producing acclaimed works such as Fuji and Echoes. Yamada announced his passing on Instagram, reflecting on a life dedicated to photography that was exciting, rewarding, and enriching. Indeed, we are all richer for the windows he opened, showing us worlds that might otherwise have remained hidden. But here's where it gets controversial. While Steele-Perkins was loved by both the establishment and the avant-garde, did his acceptance into mainstream institutions dilute his ability to challenge dominant narratives? Or was this integration precisely what allowed his empathetic, nuanced perspectives to reach wider audiences? What do you think? Was his success a triumph or a compromise? Share your thoughts below. This is the part most people miss when reflecting on his legacy.